Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there. But let's move on to the San Antonio Spurs and Golden State Warriors. And the question we are phrasing is, can the San Antonio Spurs upset the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals? It's official. These two are matching up. Can the Spurs do it? They weren't able to get here last year as the Thunder were. Dave, looking at it, can the Spurs do it?
I don't think so. This is a hard one, though, because, I'm sorry, Golden State walked through the first two rounds, and they haven't had a head coach.
I don't think walk is the right verb.
They moonwalked.
They pushed them down. They just like poked them. It was like the finger poke of death.
They strutted.
Remember that in WCW?
Yeah.
They just finger poked to death.
They used no effort. No effort was needed.
It was kind of dirty. And the thing with the Spurs is you lose Tony Parker, and you have Kawhi, who sat a game, didn't need him apparently, to knock out the Rockets. But if he tweaks that injury again, he could be out for another game. Mm-hmm. You need Kawhi in there. I think they can win 2 games. I don't think they can win 4 games in a best of 7. That's where I'm landing on that one.
1 game, and that's going to be a rough series for the Warriors. 1 game.
Wow.
Why 1 game?
It's Warriors in 5.
Why Warriors in 5?
Because to me, this Warrior team, they have the firepower.
They're just so good.
We are set for the Warriors and the Cavs and the Spurs. This is what we wanted to see. Like at the beginning of the year, I remember saying, well, I'd love to see the Spurs, but the Clippers are going to be there. That's what I said. Remember that. I said the Clippers were going to be in the Western Conference Finals.
The Spurs just shut down James Harden.
I don't know.
Had his power stolen by the Monstars.
Without Kawhi Leonard and Tony Parker.
The thing with the Rockets,
Space Jam 2, Monstars, James Harden's powers were stolen.
That one's a dual-sided coin, though, because yes, the Spurs, you got to give them all the credit in the world for doing what they did. No Tony Parker, no Kawhi Leonard in that game,
no Tim Duncan,
and no Admiral as well.
But Tim Duncan actually played last year. Sorry,
Coach
guys,
Pop
bringing up someone who actually played.
was able to do with that team without Leonard and without Parker. But on the other side, James Harden no-showed in that game. Choked in the biggest way.
He's had a really bad series, though.
Choked
the entire
in the biggest way when his team needed him most.
You also can't give the Spurs credit for winning 114-75.
No, I'm saying it's a dual-sided coin. I'm going to give the Spurs respect, but at the same time, I cannot sit here and say that James Harden didn't choke. And that if James Harden would have played better, I'm not saying, the Rockets would have won for sure, but it would have been a closer game. Another thing, it's also in the game before that. Ginobili had a great block. Great job on Ginobili. But James Harden, could you maybe have a little court awareness and know that Mano's behind you and get the shot up a little quicker?
That's the thing. He's just used to people in front of him bumping into him. Yep. He's just used to leaning into the foul.
Him being behind them and kind of riding them like
jumping on the back, calling that a foul on them.
But I think 5 is ridiculous. The Spurs are
though?
This Warriors team is too good.
I think it's more likely to go to 7 than it is to 5. Because looking at this, Kawhi Leonard, if healthy, he is one of the best players in the league, and there's no denying that. Yep. And yes, you have Curry, you have Thompson, and you have Durant, and you have Draymond Green. But also talking about Curry, talking about Thompson, those two have gone cold in the playoffs before. If we want to talk about,
matter.
They got Kevin
because
Durant.
You have Kevin Durant. And
but then,
you play ISO Durant.
No, but okay, and who is he ISOing on? Kawhi Leonard, who is one of the best defenders in the league.
Which opens up shooters.
But look at the matchup of Kawhi versus
and LaMarcus Aldridge can show up.
Yeah, every once in a while.
But this time he's going up against Draymond Green, not Ryan Anderson.
Okay, but LaMarcus is also bigger. And yes,
Draymond Green is good.
Yes, and so is LaMarcus Aldridge. So LaMarcus Aldridge wins a couple battles, and Kawhi beats Kevin Durant, which he can do because he's better than Kevin Durant. I would say that he's a better player.
He's a better all-around player. He's not a better scorer.
Okay, but Kawhi Leonard's the second best defender in the league.
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure that's an even playing field right there.
It's pretty close.
I would say that if
the best scorer versus the best defender.
If Curry and Thompson combine for 2 of 20, which they have done for 3 before, which they have done this season before, they can be shut out. I mean, they can lose a game and they can lose 2 games.
I'm the one saying they could lose 2.
Is it possible?
I'm still arguing on the fact that the Warriors.
Is it possible to say that the Spurs can play better than an A+ game? Like, is there anything higher than that? Because that's what they would need in order to beat the Warriors in this series.
I think you guys are being dramatic.
I think, well, to me, there's
the problem
two
is you have
ways.
to chain them together. You have to win 4 games out of 7
That's
against
it.
the
There's
Warriors.
two-
and I
I'm not
don't
saying
see
they'll
that
win
happening.
it. I'm
There's
saying
two
it's more
ways.
likely to go to 7. I think it's going to go to 6, and I think the Golden
picked
State will.
6.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think it's more likely to go to 7
Yep.
than it is to 5.
There are two ways this series goes. Warriors in 5 or Warriors in 6. And I'll even go ahead and say this. There's a better chance of this series being a Warriors sweep in 4 than a Warriors win in 7.
Because
Are you giving any chance to the Spurs team?
To win it all? No.
Because let's just remind ourselves that
They can get it to 5, maybe 6. But I'm going to say Warriors in 5.
Let's real quick remind ourselves of the only time that that the Golden State Warriors and San Antonio Spurs were near full health because KD wasn't even playing. Well,
Just a small part of their offense.
Well, hold on, then let's take it the whole time because KD wasn't playing the first game as well. The first game of the season, Spurs won 129-100.
Yep.
Curry, Thompson didn't show up at all.
That was also when the kind of Warriors team was still gelling together.
Okay. And then you also
they have gelled.
I don't know about that. But looking at the season matchups, obviously the first game, like you were mentioning, Dave, Durant put up 27 points in iso ball. But the Spurs still won that, 35 points from Kawhi Leonard. And I know Ricky was mentioning that the Warriors were still gelling then, which I still think they're gelling as a team because you even look at that. You look at that Miami team back when the big three got together and they couldn't put together in the NBA Finals because they weren't fully gelled. It took them a while early in the season to get gelled. But then even when it came to the NBA Finals, they didn't win then because the Mavericks, that was a team that was fully put together. So I'm not saying that the Spurs are going to upset them. But then again, you go back to the next game that they played, the Spurs won 107-85, but that game doesn't count because that's when that was the crazy game where Ian Clark put up 36 points. So you can write that one off completely. And then the game that really closed it out was the one where you can say that, the Warriors have gelled, but that was also when the Warriors were gelling without Durant, and that's when they were on that winning streak.
Correct.
When they won 110-98. So it's hard to see all of them at their full force because we haven't seen any of the games. But when you look at the game that they lost, the Spurs, that is, Tony Parker put up 0 points, and he's not going to be playing, so it's pretty much a wash there because he didn't add anything to that team, and Patty Mills is going to get more playing time and more shots up. Then you also look at Kawhi Leonard. He wasn't hitting his shots. He went 0 for 5 from 3. So if Kawhi's on, and Kawhi was doing what he did in the first round against Memphis and taking over that series, if he does that, that's why I think he could take this to at least 3 games, and it's more likely that he would do that to take it to 3 than 1, like you're saying.
I think that it's the complete other side of he would need to do that so much that he possibly cannot. Because this Warrior team, take one of them away, you still got Steph, you still got Klay Thompson, you still got Draymond Green. They have too much firepower on this team to where, and if we had an entire team of Kawhi Leonards, then sure, they have a chance to win the series.
But LaMarcus showed a lot of life there in that Rockets series. He showed a lot of life.
The Rockets don't have a power forward, though, on the same caliber as Green.
Once Nene went out, there was no balance. Clint Capella is not an equal to what Draymond Green can do.
But then again, is Zaza. How much of reliability is Zaza going to be? Because, yes, they have the 4 there. But
so watch out for Paul Gasol, guys.
But Paul Gasol is
2007 again.
Paul Gasol is still a decent player. I mean, Paul Gasol isn't great.
I know.
He's not
He's
mobile.
the worst player on the court, though.
But look at DePaul. I mean, he could still score.
He's still
and going up
offensive,
against a guy like Zaza, I mean, that's nothing that. And usually they play Paul at the 5.
They're forgetting about the Warriors.
They can play Paul at the
weapon.
4 too. I mean, they can switch
They
that
can
around.
interchange, I know.
So I mean, that's something where they could get the matchup of LaMarcus on Zaza, and they could beat that up. So
and look, if there's any coach who can get the most out of role players stepping up in a game, it's Pop, and we've seen him.
Paul.
And we've seen what he can do. I mean, Jonathan Simmons has been a beast this postseason. When they need him to step up, he does. Great scoring off the bench. They've gotten
Dwayne Dedmon too.
Dedmon this whole year has been kind of a surprise. Like when he was in Orlando, D-League, it was just nah, this guy's doesn't got it. Comes in, he's a great backup, and he has a ton of energy off the bench. And what I think has been kind of the biggest upside, and I know I talked about it a little bit before the playoffs with my concerns for the backcourt, even before Tony Parker's injury, was how much does Manu have left in the tank? And because of his limited minutes throughout his career, being a primary 6-man for recent years, he still does have it in spurts, and he is able to provide so much to that team. And we see DJ come out. I know he's rookie. I know he hasn't had a lot of playing time, but he can perform really well. But when you're going up against the best backcourt in the NBA, I don't know if you can stick with him for 48 minutes.
Well, Patty Mills is a decent backup. Patty Mills is not a bad backup.
Patty Mills is going to get paid.
And then also you look at Danny Green, he's a fantastic defender. So,
Pretty good, yep.
you look at that, and again, I just go back to the Steph Curry and Klay Thompson thing, and Ricky, I know when we did our NBA reactions, this was something that you always said, like, well, when the Warriors lost a game to the Cavs, it's something where, Steph and Klay couldn't hit their shots. They couldn't make their shots. So that's something where...
But they didn't have Durant.
But that's when I go back to Kawhi. Then it's Kawhi versus KD, and I would take Kawhi for most of that. That's why I think when you add the Durant thing, that's why I don't think the Spurs can win.
Well, and you also have to think of this. Just having KD there, this Warriors team is not the same Warriors team that we saw last year. There was more pressure on Steph Curry, on Klay Thompson, because there wasn't that superstar
Are you
like
saying
Durant
Kevin Durant's
there.
a slight upgrade over
Slight
can't
upgrade.
hit the side of the barn?
A slight upgrade.
Just
Harrison
a slight
Barnes.
one. Yeah. No, can't hit the side of the
Harrison
barn.
can't hit the side of a Barnes, is what I should call him.
I think we got the reference.
Yeah.
But sick of that. Yeah.
Kevin Durant, though, just by having him on the court, takes pressure off of one of the greatest point guards, possibly the greatest point guard in this game today, and then one of the best shooters in this game today in Klay Thompson.
The best three-point shooters in the game. And that's honestly the biggest thing for me is, like, I on the court, yes, the Spurs are at a loss when it comes offensively. Like, they can get great individual performances out of guys and keep up, and that's why I think they can take games. And the big reason why they're going to be able to do that is because of the coaching advantage. Because Steve Kerr isn't going to be there when something goes wrong, or to stop one of those streaks where, the Golden State's looking like they're out out of the funk, they're in a groove.
Curry's not feeling it.
And and Kerr has been such a good coach with the early timeouts to make sure his players don't get upset, they don't get set in a bad funk. And the thing with Steve Kerr is his rotations haven't always been ideal for the team. And I feel like he kind of found a groove at the end of the year, but I'm wondering if one thing goes wrong, if Mike Brown's going to be able to make the right change up for them.
Well, that's one thing, too. I mean, you hope that Mike Brown, being an assistant coach, being through Kerr, kind of planning out those rotations, getting the feel of it, if he has picked that up and has kind of brought that in. Because you do look at the Jazz. The Jazz were a fine team, but they didn't have players like Kawhi Leonard. They didn't have the coach like Pop. And you look at that, and, can they really put that all together? Ricky, would you say that, what would be the one way the Spurs can win? Because you're dead set Warriors winning on 5.
Injury. One of the Warriors gets, one or two of them get injured.
Outside of that, is there something specific? Nothing at all?
This Warriors team, it's part of me wants to say so badly that this series is going to go to 7, because I have ragged on these playoffs for not having the most entertaining games, especially with the Warriors and the Cavs, especially what they're doing. They're both just running through teams.
In the West in general, yeah.
Yeah, and I would love this series to go to 7, but the Spurs, I feel like they're running into a buzzsaw, and they'll get a game or two at most.
So the question was, can the Spurs upset the Warriors? I think we're all dead set on no. Just final question here, looking at this. Is this the final kind of curtain on the Spurs? Do they have to kind of reset the team? Do they? Because obviously you have Kawhi, but then with Tony Parker going down, we don't know the severity of his injury, how long he's going to be out. There doesn't seem to be guards set in place there. LaMarcus has been shaky. He was really good to end the Houston Rockets series, but then looking at that, Paul Gasol's in your starting lineup. Do you think the kind of window is closing on maybe retooling very soon? Do you think we might see a switch in personnel in the Spurs coming up, especially if they lose in 5 to the Warriors?
I want to say no, only because the positions of need, like the Ginobili getting older, Tony Parker's injury, how he's going to come back if he does, is one of the things. There's got to be a veteran out there that'll take a minimum just to play with the Spurs because of Coach Pop.
Derrick Rose won't take a minimum, but he'll take a cheap contract. And if they're gonna, it might be the move to get him as a backup point guard. But honestly, I think you could put Kawhi Leonard and 4 other D leaguers out there, and Pop will put him at 50 wins.
I mean, 2 of them, Dwayne Dedmon and Jonathan Simmons, right there. So there you go. Ricky, how would you feel with Derrick Rose and Spurs colors?
I mean, 2 former Bulls. 2 former Bulls and Paul Gasol and Derrick Rose. Well, Paul Gasol kind of a half Bull.
Yeah, he might be gone.
We should have traded him. But, I mean, the biggest thing that the Spurs could do this offseason that would help them is draft Josh Hart in the end of the first round.
It'd be interesting. My Malcolm Brogdon Award winner, and I think we all had him in the running.
He was my number 2 behind right behind Goss.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. Tell us, do you think the Spurs can upset the Warriors in the NBA playoffs? Thank you. Oh, shit. Oh, it's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.